You can play, because Petita Pavan can play the drum. Lord Guranga is calling. Wake up, sleeping souls. Wake up, sleeping souls. How long will you sleep in the lap of the witch called Maya? You have forgotten the way of devotional service and are lost in the world of birth and death. I have descended just to save you. Other than myself, you have no friend in this world. I have brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you are suffering. Take this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Bhakti no Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gaurachandra Lole, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gaurachandra Lole, Kota Nidra Jaya Maya Pisatira Kole, Kota Nidra Jaya Maya Pisatira Kole, Pachi Balia Ese Samsarabi Tore, Pachi Balia Ese Samsarabi Tore, Puliyago Hile to me, Abhidyara Bole, Puliyago Hile to me, Abhidyara Bole, Tomare Loite Ani I know Avatara Tomara Loite Ami I know Avatara Ami Bina Bandhu Aram Ke Acheto Mara Me Bina Bandhu Aram Ke Acheto Mara Enechi Oshodi Maya Nashibaro Lagi Chio Shodi Maya Nashibaro Lagi Harinama Mahamantra Latumi Magi Nama Mahamantra Latumi Magi Nebo Iya Soda Prabhu Charane Bhaktiya Jai Hari Nama Manjam Lama Iya Jai Hari Nama Manjam Lama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jai Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nityananda Chandra, Nityananda Chandra, Madhu Chandra. Nityananda Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Asachade Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Reading from Srila Prabhupada's Coming, the personal memories of Her Grace Mahamaya Devidasi, memories of association and interaction with Srila Prabhupada. Mayapur, November 1975 to March 1976. Communication with the outside world practically didn't exist. Letters delivered from the Muslim-run post office near the Yogapith, if they did arrive, were already opened. Mayapur had one telephone in the Lotus building on the back veranda behind the stairs. If someone phoned, everyone in the vicinity could hear the person on our end yelling into the receiver. Hardly anyone called. So originally you had to book the call first. You had to book a call. And then you had to wait for the operator to get back to you. And then they had to find the person on the other side. And then still you're yelling across. You're calling London or America. You're practically yelling to get there. The lack of communication didn't really matter because we were in the Holy Dham, Lord Chaitanya's home, and he is especially merciful to fallen souls. I could feel his presence often. Even the banana trees reminded me of him. Our real important business was chanting Hare Krishna. Although quiet, Mayapur was the world headquarters of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The Sankirtan movement started here, which made it the center of the universe. I noted that when large groups of pilgrims came, they invariably consisted of all women, with 2 or 3 men chaperones. So that I understood that women formed the bulk of the Krishna devotees in India. Even though to stay in India, we Western women were more or less forced to accept being treated as lower class citizens, I understood that having a woman's body was conducive to spiritual life. Women were naturally in a subservient position, which is necessary for maintaining a proper, humble relationship with Guru and Lord Krishna. So Prabhupada explains this also in the Bhagavatam. Woman has this natural subservient tendency. They have a natural feeling for religion and for God. And that makes them more better quality, better recipients of spiritual understanding and religion in general. The back veranda of the Lotus building was my outdoor office. To type, I sat cross-legged on the floor and perched my typewriter on its hard case. Jayapataka Maharaj dictated letters on tapes, but I didn't have a transcriber, so I nearly wore out my tape player transcribing his tapes. As the temple secretary, I had a few other duties, such as keeping a current list of the foreign devotees' names and passport numbers for the Foreign Registration Office, FRO, in nearby Krishnanagar. So that can be an interesting thing. We won't get into it now, but devotees have interesting experiences with the Foreign Registration Office. I also helped Krishna Rupadasi sew for the deities. Navadvipa was the nearest town. I hardly ever went shopping there, However, a few times I traveled by train to Calcutta with Krishna Rupa to shop for cloth, trims, and decorations for Radha Madhava's outfits. The Bengali devotees. The Bengali ladies were Krishna devotees at heart, but they had a problem chanting japa. When given japa beads, they just sit around and talk. So Srila Prabhupada told them to do service instead of japa, and thus directly after Mangal Arti, they went to the big kitchen to hoe rice or to cut fruits and vegetables. Srila Prabhupada was merciful in giving first initiation to all the Bengali devotees, forgiving the ladies their lack of discipline in chanting japa. However, only the 3 ladies who did chant 16 rounds were later offered second initiation. The mother of Haridas Prabhu from Bombay Temple came to live in Mayapur. Being a cultured lady who can read and write, she didn't live with Bengali ladies, but has shared a room with me above the big kitchen. We called her Haridas Ma, Haridas's mother, as was the custom. The ladies were known by their child's name. So, Mother Dia would be Rishabh Ma. She lived in Mayapur for quite some time before we discovered she was a fabulous cook. After that, she cooked for Radha Madhava. The devotees started calling her Didi Ma, meaning older sister. The Bengali men made saris on looms. This cottage industry provided income for the temple when the saris were sold during the Gaur Purnima festival. Once or twice a year, each female devotee living in Mayapur received one of the colorful hand-loom saris. The Bengali ladies wrapped their saris differently than we Western ladies. Only city slickers in India wore their saris like us. So we adopted their style, which was faster to wrap and cooler to wear, though harder to keep over the head. I like to watch the easily pleased Bengali children. The toddlers were satisfied playing with a small stick or some leaves. They were not suffering for lack of store-bought toys. Kids in America were less peaceful, though perhaps more intelligent because of being brought up on cow's milk. Prasadam. Everyone ate in the Prasadam pavilion behind the big kitchen. The prasadam was austere by Western standards, but it was either eat there or starve. Except for a few bites of Mahaprasadam each morning, we had no other prasadam, not even for a price, and no means to buy boga, unoffered foodstuffs, nor any facilities for cooking. There was one concession for Western devotees. We each received a piece of fruit at 4 p.m. daily. So they made kind of uh, uh, weight watching and not eating anything that's not offered to Krishna very easy because there wasn't anything to eat. So you just took what Krishna gave. I looked forward to the twice monthly Dwadasi day, the day after Ekadasi, when we fasted from grains and beans. For this was the only time we got a few mouthfuls of sweet prasadam. That small amount of delicious atta, wheat flour halva, however, was insufficient to satisfy my sweet tooth. I never realized how many naturally sweet things I was accustomed to eating until I was deprived of them. Hardly any fruit, no fruit juices, no Sunday feasts. No Sunday. So it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's just every day is the same. Even in India at the time, there was no such thing as a weekend. Every day was the same. Desperate during my daily stint at the temple book table, I'd sneak some gur badam, peanuts and gur, meant for the infrequent guests. I also asked the purchaser or kitchen in charge to buy me a supply of rock candy, which I kept in a jar in my room. So I was a kitchen in charge when I was there from in June to August 1975. Instead of a Sunday love feast, we had two feasts per week on Saturday and Sunday. Feast meant khichdi cooked with mustard oil, distributed to 2,000 people besides us. I no longer looked forward to the weekends as I used to in America. However, when a feast day came around, Radha Madhava ate sumptuously, and so did we. I felt very satisfied. The Bengali ladies really knew the art of cooking. We drank water from the hand pumps, none of which were deep wells. I suffered from stomach ailments caused by the lack of pure water, but bottled water and water filters were unknown to us. Better not to mix. We did not visit other temples in Mayapur except as a group once a year during the Gaur Purnima festival, because Srila Prabhupada didn't want us to associate with his godbrothers. He wrote to Rupanuga Prabhu in April 28, 1974, in a letter that circulated all over ISKCON. Quote, actually, among my godbrothers, no one is qualified to become acharya. So it is better not to mix with my godbrothers very intimately, because instead of inspiring our students and disciples, they may sometimes pollute them. This attempt was made previously by them, especially Madhava Maharaj and Tirtha Maharaj and Ban Maharaj. But somehow or other I saved the situation. This is going on. We shall be very careful about them and not mix with them. This is my instruction to you all. They cannot help us in our movements, but they are very competent to harm our natural progress. So we must be very careful about them. So Prabhupada always encourages us to take shiksha within ISKCON, not outside. Even though they're notable personalities and there are some different members of the Gaudiya Math, mostly late now, who were appreciated by so many devotees who had left ISKCON. Still, generally speaking, Srila Prabhupada preferred that we keep our Sangha and our Shiksha within ISKCON. Because we live so near to Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers in Mayapur, our local leaders stress this point even more. quote, don't go to their temples, don't buy their books, don't take prasadam there. Be respectful if you meet them, but don't mingle. Because we live so near to Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers in Mayapur, she's married then, other Vaishnavas were bound to have perspectives different than Srila Prabhupada's and to say things differently. And the result would be confusion. Besides that, Srila Prabhupada told us many times that some of his godbrothers envied his success. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada wrote, quote, we shall be very careful about them and not mix with them. This is my instruction to you all, unquote. Not only Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers, but many camps and philosophies were represented in India. Our spiritual lives depended on our chastity in following Srila Prabhupada strictly without deviating. No adding, no subtracting, no interpreting. And why should we neglect his pure teachings to hear from others? Obviously, Srila Prabhupada was the only one of his godbrothers to fully understand and fulfill the desires of their guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, to preach Krishna consciousness worldwide. Lord Chaitanya's mercy was flowing through Srila Prabhupada, enabling him to succeed in spreading Krishna consciousness on an unprecedented scale. Our spiritual father, what is the greatest empowered personality, the Jagat Guru, or Guru of the universe. I was glad to live in India because I clearly understood the urgency of Srila Prabhupada's instructions regarding his godbrothers. Practicing spiritual life, we were on the razor's edge. Any inattention and we could be cut. Eventually, I saw devotees who paid no heed to his warnings and wandered off the path. Srila Prabhupada rectified some of them, but others he could not retrieve. So it's dangerous when one begins to think that one can accept instructions from other schools, other camps, other institutions. Srila Prabhupada's arrival. On January 17, 1976, all the Mayapur devotees, Bengalis and Westerners, had a rousing kirtan outside the now completed front gates. We were waiting for Srila Prabhupada to arrive and expecting him to stay through the Gaur Purnima festival in March. Finally, his car came. Jai Srila Prabhupada Hari Bol. We paid obeisances to him in the street. Avnanda Maharaj handed Srila Prabhupada a pair of scissors to cut a wide inaugural ribbon hanging on the gate. With kirtan going full blast, we all followed him until the arch. Under the arch and through the metal gates. We were so happy to see Srila Prabhupada. We were not identifying with our bodies. We were truly an international family, exuberantly celebrating the arrival of our glorious spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada walked the main gate to the Lotus building. Just as he approached the temple door, a flower shower that looked like an offering from the demigods fell on Srila Prabhupada thanks to Swati and Kamaduk Prabhu's one flight up. After taking darshan of Radhamadava, Srila Prabhupada sat on his Vyasasana. In his arrival address, he expressed exactly what I was feeling that day. It was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's aspiration that the Europeans, Americans, and Indians all together dance jubilantly and chant Gaura Hari. So this temple, Mayapur Chandrodaya Temple, is meant for a transcendental United Nation. What the United Nations has failed to achieve, that will be achieved here by the process recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Priti Vita Yachi Yata Nagarati Gram Sarvatra Prachar Hoive Muranam. So you have come from all parts of the world and are living together in this temple. So train these small boys. I am very glad, especially to see that the small children from all other countries and India, Bengalis, all together, forgetting their bodily consciousness. That is the greatest achievement in this movement, that everyone forgets the bodily conception of life. Nobody thinks themselves here as European, American, Indian, Hindu, Muslim, Christian. They forget all these designations, and simply they are ecstatic in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So kindly, what you have begun, do not break it. Continue it very jubilantly. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the master of Mayapur, he will be very much pleased upon you. And ultimately, you will go back home, back to God. Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Yeah.
They say Jagat Guru in ISKCON.
Well, Jagat means the whole world. So Jagat means the guru of the whole world. So, because Prabhupada is a bona fide pure devotee, then he carries that right because he can deliver everyone in the world, no problem. It's just a matter of their uh, submitting to his directive. They've never even left the village or left the city or left India even. So Prabhupada traveled the world and met people everywhere from all different cultures and countries and languages, cultures, and he convinced them of Krishna consciousness. So then you can say Jagat Guru. But we reserve that for Srila Prabhupada. We don't claim that any one of his disciples is Jagat Guru. The long building. Whenever I saw Srila Prabhupada, I hardly knew of his activities as the manager of his worldwide organization, even if I was right there in the same temple. But occasionally news trickled down. For instance, the day after his arrival, he toured the grounds and suggested that a new building be constructed along the northern boundary line, parallel to the Lotus building. He wanted it finished in time to house the visiting devotees during the Gaur Purnima festival. The Prabhupada arrived on me, was it? It was in January. But Srila Prabhupada, the festival is only 6 weeks away. The leaders protested. How can we get it finished on time? The task was impossible, but Srila Prabhupada asked that they try. He often pushed his disciples to increase their service, sometimes quipping that impossible was a word found in the Fool's Dictionary. The new building did go up, and quickly too. Srila Prabhupada himself got involved with some details of the construction, and he kept Japatakam Swami, Prancharatra Babu, and many other devotees busy. Almost 1,000 feet long, 5 times the length of the Lotus building, and similarly designed, everyone called it the Long Building, and the nickname stuck. Technically, it's the Chakra Building, but when you go there, you'll see each building. They have the Chakra Building, they have the Lotus Building, they have the Gada Building, and on the corners in bas relief, they've into the concrete they put the club or the chakra or the lotus. But the chakra building is always still called the long building. Since the Ganga flooded Mayapur every 8 or 9 years, the plan called for 2 floors of rooms above the hollow space around the plinths on the ground level. Realizing that this was a waste of space, Srila Prabhupada later told the workers to enclose the ground floor to make basement rooms. Srila Prabhupada mentioned it at an evening darshan, quote, "For a few more rupees, you get thousands of square feet of usable space. So I told them to finish it off." So because it floods, then the first floor, nobody stays on the ground floor. The living rooms are the first floor and the second floor. But Prabhupada told them that area on the bottom, you can make storerooms, basement rooms. But morning walks. Women were not invited on Srila Prabhupada's morning walks. Of course, except Vishaka Mataji with her camera. But I was always outside chanting japa during that time. Spotting His Divine Grace, I would usually offer obeisances 3 times. When I first saw him from a distance, when I could see him more clearly, and when he was very close. The pukur near the front gate was his favorite destination. It was a man-made pond, crudely dug more or less square. Srila Prabhupada walked along and around its raised sides, his entourage following in single file. The raised sides were 15-foot-high piles of dirt blocking the sight of the pond itself. Patches of wild subsies, okra and portals, grew on the small hills. I relished walking Srila Prabhupada's stately form, even from a distance. He walked majestically, using his cane to balance himself as he went around the pukur. One morning I picked a beautiful, newly opened rose from the flower garden and handed it to Srila Prabhupada as he passed. I felt good about this until Bhavananda Maharaj, who hung back, heavily criticized me for picking the rose. So, roses have to be fully bloomed before you can pick them, he yelled. He angrily banned me from picking roses. I was aware of his rule about picking only fully bloomed roses, but what he didn't consider was that a fully bloomed rose, whose petals are wide open, is on the verge of falling apart, as the garland makers experience daily with great frustration. The pleasure of giving Srila Prabhupada that contraband, newly opened rose outweighed the aggravation of being scolded for picking it. One time I was walking on the construction site of the Lotus building, so absorbed in my chanting that I didn't notice Srila Prabhupada and his entourage approaching from behind. I was caught by surprise. For a minute, I was part of the morning walk as they encircled me. They continued walking on without me, of course. Srimad Bhagavatam classes. So we know about the Pukur. We actually, Japatakamaris, when I was there, he ordered it built because he wanted to play water polo. Water polo. Water polo, just, you know, dodgeball, come soccer in the water. Anyway, it's an excuse to get in the water because it was so darn hot. So all the Gurukula children would join him when they came down. And I was in charge of the kitchen, I mentioned before, so we had to make sure we had a save because lunch was at 12 and Maharaj only started the fun at 12:30. So we had to make sure there was enough prasadam for Maharaj and the Gurukula kids. Made an interesting extra service. Srimad Bhagavatam classes. The Mayapur temple schedule that we followed throughout the year differed in some details from the schedule of the annual international festival. Normally during the year, after Mangal Arti, Tulsi Puja, and Samjapa, we'd sing Udilo Aruna at sunrise. So here I am being confirmed. We'd sing, and some japa, also was japa, which is 15-20 minutes. We would sing Udilo Aruna at sunrise. This song celebrates the rising of the sun in Mayapur, a time of day when Lord Chaitanya would perform Sankirtan through the village. And usually we held the Srimad Bhagavatam class before we greeted the deities. So now Srila Prabhupada followed this normal schedule. Srila Prabhupada gave classes on the 7th canto of chapter 9. After his first class was over, he turned to Subhag Das and said, quote, now you translate into Bengali. Subhag Prabhu, now Swami, was stunned. Srila Prabhupada had not asked him to translate sentence by sentence. Rather, without warning, Srila Prabhupada expected him to remember the class and summarize it. So difficult. He was on the spot and could say hardly anything. Srila Prabhupada then asked Nitai Chandas, and he made a passable attempt. After that, it became a regular feature that one of the bilingual devotees would give a synopsis of the class in Bengali. Now they knew what to expect and listened carefully to the class. Guru Puja. After the deity curtains opened at 7 a.m., we greeted the deities with the Govindam prayers, followed by Srila Prabhupada sitting on his marble Vyasasana with his brightly colored cushions for Guru Puja. Then Srila Prabhupada circumambulated the temple room 3 times, stopping to ring the bells on either side of the altar. Surrounded by dancing Gurukula boys, Srila Prabhupada gestured to encourage them to dance and jump higher. We all had just as much fun dancing for Srila Prabhupada as we did with the festival crowds. One morning, Srila Prabhupada had gotten up after Guru Puja and was walking toward the deities when Jananivas Prabhu stopped him. Holding out a plate full of Mangal Arti sweets, Srila Prabhupada took a piece and popped it in his mouth. Then he distributed the remainder of the sweets to those lucky devotees nearby. The next day, Jananivas brought the plate of Mongol sweets earlier, while Srila Prabhupada was still on the Vyasa-san, and the kirtan was still going on. Srila Prabhupada again popped a piece in his mouth and indicated that the Gurukula boys should come forward to receive pieces. The area right in front of the Vyasa-san was very congested, but the boys pushed and shoved to line up and approached Srila Prabhupada through the small opening in a marble barrier that separated the Vyasa-san area from the temple room. They looked so happy to receive their sweets from his hand. This was the start of a daily routine. If Prabhupada broke up the sweets into small enough pieces, there was enough for the men to also receive sweets. Some days there was still some leftovers after all the boys and men and had received theirs, so the little girls, there were only 5 or 6 of them, would get sweets. Last came the women. Oh, those rare and wonderful days when the ladies got the mercy of receiving pieces of Mongol Arti sweets from Srila Prabhupada's hand. He wouldn't just drop the sweets to my outstretched palm. He would push it into my hand, touching it. When the sweets didn't stretch to include us, however, the little girls were so generous that they would share their tiny pieces with the ladies so that no one missed out. The blonde-haired boys, Sivajwar and Damodar, loved getting sweets from Srila Prabhupada. They stationed themselves in front of his Vyasa-san and would not budge. They kept their hands out constantly. Srila Prabhupada reciprocated by giving them sweets 3 or 4 times. Srila Prabhupada often laughed at their antics. Each time one of them got a piece, he ate it, wiped his hand on the sika, and held out his hand for more, all in one motion. The boys must have been imitating the guests, who received in their right hands a tiny spoonful of charnamrita, the deity's bath water mixed with yogurt and sugar, and sipped it, then wiped their hands on the back of their heads. Srila Prabhupada's distributing prasadam to all of us was a sweet and intimate affair. Flower pastimes. The little 9 and 10-year-old Bengali girls picked flowers from the gardens for the deity garlands every morning after Mongol Arti. It was dark at that time of the morning in the winter, but that didn't deter them. These girls were quite responsible and made all the garlands. Now they increased the amount of flowers so as to make a garland daily for Srila Prabhupada. They made a huge garland, 4 inches in diameter, with spirally strung, super fragrant flowers called Rajani Ganda, the queen of scents, which resemble small white bugles. The girls included in the garland both sections of red and pink roses and variously colored marigolds. It was a masterpiece every day, often reaching Srila Prabhupada's knees. Srila Prabhupada looked aristocratic wearing these garlands. Usually there were extra flowers and petals that the little girls sprinkled on top of Srila Prabhupada's shoes outside the door. Srila Prabhupada put on his shoes with the devotees' assistance. And when they started walking, the flowers would fall off. This pastime is in the following Srila Prabhupada DVD. One day they didn't fall off. I watched Srila Prabhupada take several steps and then look down. Noticing that the flowers were still there, he lifted one foot and gently shook it, then the other, but the flowers didn't move. He looked puzzled. The little girls were in stitches watching this, for they had played a joke and tied small garlands of flower petals around the toe of each shoe. They had let the ladies in on the trick, and so we were also cracking up. Then Srila Prabhupada figured it out and laughed too, enjoying the joke very much. He had a great sense of humor and didn't mind the girls playing a little joke. Hare Krishna. So they were young girls, and they would go out in the dark every morning after Mangala Arati, pick flowers, and there were snakes around there and everything. They weren't bothered. You go there now in Mayapur and behind Prabhupada's Vyasa, there's about 20 ladies there, and they're making the garlands. They're making the garlands. They have laborers, devotees that go out and pick the flowers. They come back with these huge baskets, and then they make all the garlands. Of course, Radha Madhava and the Astasakis, they're over 7 foot tall, so the garlands are quite gigantic as well. Any other comment, question? Bhavananda Maharaj renounced his room on the Lotus Building roof for Srila Prabhupada's use, particularly for his afternoon nap. Coming down from the roof after 4 o'clock, Srila Prabhupada started evening darshans at 5. Anyone could come. From the day he arrived, I was inspired to go. I really liked these evening darshans and kicked myself for not going to them when I could in Vrindavan and Bombay. Hearing Srila Prabhupada's enlightening conversations and watching his facial expressions and gestures was like tasting nectar. So was seeing him deftly pour water from his drinking glass into his mouth without touching the glass to his lips. His every move was majestic, and he was the cynosure of all eyes. Comfortable and relaxed, Srila Prabhupada was at home in Mayapur. Srila Prabhupada's right hand would often be in his bead bag during a darshan, and I'd notice him chanting quietly between lulls in the conversation. Being in close proximity to Srila Prabhupada both exhilarated and penetrated my mind. He was so focused on Krishna that every word and action revealed his addiction to the Lord. Because I felt I couldn't hide anything from him, not even my mind. I thought I must think of Krishna so that my thoughts aren't a disturbance to Srila Prabhupada's meditation. The temple secretary. Even before Srila Prabhupada arrived, I was not fully engaged as Jayapataka Maharaj's secretary because he was often away from Mayapur proper, busy buying land in the vicinity for the future Mayapur city that Srila Prabhupada desired. Because he was away so often, and also because he thought someone might criticize him for having a woman secretary, Jayapataka Maharaj had made Pancharatra Prabhu, a brahmachari, my connection for the typing work. Now, both of them were busy with the construction of the long building and didn't have time to engage me, to keep me engaged in service. I again had wanted to type Srila Prabhupada's letters. I told Tamal Krishna Goswami, Srila Prabhupada's current GBC secretary, that I typed the letters previously in Vrindavan and Bombay and asked if I could resume that service. He said, I'll check with Srila Prabhupada. Later he told me Srila Prabhupada's answer, no. Why do I have a secretary if my secretary has a secretary? Becoming Pishima's personal servant. Not long after Srila Prabhupada's arrival, his sister showed up. I was expecting a big competition among the ladies to become her personal servant. Surprisingly, I was the only one eager to do it. Even Palika Prabhu, who had come to be Srila Prabhupada's cook, said she didn't want the post. Bhishma wanted to live as close as possible to the ladies' bathroom on the first floor of the Lotus building. She didn't mind living on the veranda as she had during the Gaur Purnima festival. However, the temple authorities didn't want her living there. They promised her a guest room on that floor in typical Indian fashion, just now coming, which means wait. Meanwhile, we were given the use of the room next to the bathroom, a large GBC conference room. I moved whatever I needed from the ladies' ashram, and we lived in a corner of the room. I kept the room clean, washed Pishima's white widow's sari, and brought prasadam from the big kitchen for both of us to eat. Occasionally, I massaged the tough soles of her extra wide feet, extended from decades of not wearing shoes. I didn't know much Bengali, but we communicated somehow. Her knowledge of English consisted of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, sounding like one word. She also knew water and wash, which provided a clue into her mentality. She was very clean. As I saw previously, Prishima liked to douse the devotees with handfuls of water, especially on our bead bags. One of my main duties was to carry the bottle of this water. I'd refill Pishima's bottle of Ganga Jal, Ganges water, from a large bottle she kept in the room. She made her own arrangements to keep the large bottle filled, engaging the Bengali devotees in filling it when they bathed in the Ganga. She also had them supply her with Ganga mud, which she used instead of soap to clean her body. Someone gave her a bar of neem soap from the supply room, but she had no intention of using it. She stashed it away to bring it back to her family in Calcutta. It was modern, Western, and thus undesirable as far as she was concerned. But her family members would find it desirable for just those reasons. Bhishma also had a stock of gobar, or cow dung, which she used to clean the bathroom because it has antiseptic properties. She tossed small clumps of gobar around the bathroom. After the first time she did this, I walked in and was taken aback by the little brown piles here and there on the floor. I thought some Bengali children had passed stool on the floor and the mothers didn't clean it up. But on closer inspection, I realized this was gobar, Pishima's doing. Just like at the festival, Pishima showed so much respect for Srila Prabhupada that she came to his Srimad Bhagavatam classes. Not understanding English, she would just nod a bit. When she got up, she asked for the Ganga Jal and washed the floor where she'd been sitting. Leaving the temple room, she threw water on the doorway. I saw her water splashing as a symptom of humility. She was probably thinking she contaminated her sitting places or whatever she brushed against. Her policy was to leave every place cleaner than she found it, which is a Vaishnava practice. Some of the men, however, found her behavior extreme. Actually, Pishima was a Vaishnava with many wonderful qualities. An austere devotee, she chanted japa constantly and fasted completely on Ekadasi. Speaking with her in my broken Bengali or Benglish, or occasionally communicating through a translator, I especially appreciated that she was extraordinarily uncritical, saying positive things about everyone and everything. I was fortunate to have her association. One of the first days she was in Mayapur, Pishima went into the deity kitchen and cooked up a storm. She made a large quantity of dal puris, a deep fried whole wheat bread with a slight filling of spicy ground dal beans. The Mayapur brahmacharis were in bliss as they lined up to get a crispy dal puri. Apparently, knowledge of this unexpected handout reached Srila Prabhupada, and he squelched any repeats of the event. Those who received prasadam cooked by Pishima felt lucky indeed. I would have thought that the deity cook would have been really upset. Vrindavan Bihari, we were reading about her previous. She was from South Africa, actually. Why even know South Africa? And yeah, she was married to Annika Dundabi, the 6'10" devotee from the UK. But she was an excellent cook, excellent cook. Not that we got much Mahaprasadam. Okay, we'll finish this piece. Whenever Srila Prabhupada didn't give the Srimad Bhagavatam class, the GBC conference room was used for the English class, even though it was also Pishima's bedroom. She didn't mind when the devotees filed into the room asking, Pishima, is it all right if we have class in here? She'd gesture as to say, go ahead. And we would sit there trying to chant japa while night, and she would sit there trying to chant japa while nodding out. Oh no, about nodding out. One more. Taking Pishima to evening darshans. If there was any need for a reason on my part to go to Srila Prabhupada's evening darshans, once Pishima arrived, I had the perfect excuse. I had to help her up the stairs and carry her bottle of Ganga Jal. Pishima often wanted to go early to Srila Prabhupada's room. It was such a struggle for her to climb stairs, so we usually started early and arrived first. The devotee guards would be lenient because she was Srila Prabhupada's sister. Coming inside, we'd offer obeisances on the straw mat in the doorway and then sit on the white sheets covering the cotton mattresses. We'd always sit in the same place in a corner. Even though we were at the furthest point away from Srila Prabhupada, still we were just a few yards away from his low desk. It was an intimate setting. Srila Prabhupada usually spoke in English at darshan, but there were occasions when the guests spoke Bengali or even Hindi. Whether or not I could follow the conversation, I relished sitting at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. Though when I didn't understand the language, it was difficult indeed to stay awake. Those times I sympathized with Pishima's struggle to stay awake in Srimad Bhagavatam classes. One day I remember trying to stay awake while hearing a long Bengali conversation. I preached to my mind, quote, for so long you wanted more of Srila Prabhupada's association, and now you have it. Devotees all over the world would give a fortune to be where you are right now, sitting at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. You are so fortunate. You better be attentive so you can share the nectar of Srila Prabhupada's darshan with others. So that's a fact. Prabhupada didn't like devotees falling asleep during classes. And then we read previously, Prabhupada said that his classes are for his serious students, meaning that we shouldn't fall asleep in them. And label ourselves as unserious students. Anything else? Comments?
Did you ever attend the evening darshan?
No. I would have if I'd been able to get back to my. No. I attended class in New Vrindavan, outside, in Atlanta, in Mayapur. Well, there were mostly classes, and in Vrindavan, but no darshans, no morning walks. Those are kind of restricted for the big guns. Or personalities like this Mataji who just wanted to be there and made a plan. Have to learn that for the next lifetime. All right. We'll stop there because we have to get back home and we have to get back here. Srila Prabhupada ki. Shri Shri Natai Maharajan. Natai Gaur Prema. Natai.